Hey guys, Dante here, and welcome back to my channel, The Burger Thought, and welcome back to another episode of the Toy Chest, where I show you figurines I make of old and new. And yes, once again, I am doing a voiceover because I forgot to film an intro. So let's get straight to the point. Today we are making yet another character from my Pact series. Essentially, a series of transforming characters, mainly humans, that transform into monstrous creatures. A la a parasitic-like attachment on their body. So what is the attachment for today? What is the idea for today? Well, today we're going to be turning this kind of standard looking, Uber Eats food carrier of obligatory name individual into this. So we're going to be using the extra mass of someone carrying a large delivery box on their back to turn into this large, grotesque, square-headed monstrosity. And we're going to start right now by first making the box. But before I go ahead, I just want to remind everyone that I will be segmenting this video. So be sure to look down in the description where you could then go and jump the entire part of how I made it and instead see the final result. Okay, let's get away from the microphone and just talk live. So here is the box. There's going to be the outside of the box, which is why I have the white plastic on the outside. So what I'm planning to do, there we go. I'm going to do a little cut right here, partway down. I'm going to take these miscellaneous pieces of Lego, which I got from like a cheap grab bag for like $1 or something. They were useless until now. I'm going to basically cut these in half and mount them across. Because the bag is going to have a flap anyway, which will cover said Lego, and that will be our locking point on top. And I might use the same concept on the top for a flap, which will be attached to the back of the neck. Because check out our good boy. Look at this guy. Look at this goofy smile. So here's a chest piece that comes right down. And the head is just on the white plastic with a beam that's hot glued into place. And the head folds just enough inside, which is perfect. Look at this mess. Sorry for that. Look at it. This is what you never see. Sorry for this. It is horrible. This giant mess. Anyway, yeah, let's keep going. All right, so with I guess you call it the flaps now glued to the back. The legs are backwards on this right now. The legs are backwards, so we're looking at the back of the figure, to be honest. You have the door hinges, and they're just glued onto the back, onto his shoulder blades, pretty much. And what I have here is nothing more but some blue insulation foam, right? I've used some epoxy clay to attach the blue foam to the back. And this is just going to be an inner core. The whole thing, because it's attached with the epoxy clay on one side, that's already hardened. And then I'll add a layer of clay around this block, which will harden it into a shell. And I'm using insulation foam just to make sure everything stays lightweight. But with the epoxy clay, it will harden. This will be sculpted into the monster's face, his upper jaw and his face. And speaking of his jawline, this right here is a sliding mechanism I made using, as I pan over all my junk here, using pieces from an old, I think it's called Connect toy. Like I have a whole box of these. And you could use it to make all these kind of sliding brackets and whatnot. I don't know if you call them brackets, but yeah, sliding rails. So what we see right there is the anchor, which is also held in place with some clay. That's all going to dry. And this piece slides up and down, so his jaw isn't going to open like a regular jaw. It's just going to drop straight down to give this really gaping kind of mouth. So I'll sculpt around the head. I'll sculpt all over the metal interior. That's all going to be the fleshy stuff. Then I'll sculpt a jaw around this base here, and that's going to just drop down. So yeah, so this is all the mechanics pretty much getting finished up. Like, this is more or less the end of the mechanics, and now it's just me adding clay and doing fine detailing. So yeah, let's keep going. So he is our boy in his human form, and I've gone and taken some basic Crayola air dry foam to add as the filler for what would eventually be the sculpted arms, as I mentioned before. But then it kind of occurred to me, why sculpt the arms when I could try something else? So we're gonna try something different. I have this thing called Easy Mold. Easy Mold is a two-part epoxy, not even epoxy. That's a two-part putty, white and purple. And when you mix it, it's purple. And this stuff has like a 3-minute work time and 25-minute dries. So this is actually really good for like simple stuff. Like if you want to roll it up into a ball and push it into a coin, you get a nice quick coin mold, which is like one of the main things they kind of showcase here. And it's like really good for like quick, simple molds. I've used it to do really, really simple things. So what I've done is taken a wrestling figurine, well, the body, the top half of one, and I've just molded some of this stuff about 2/3 around, right? Just kind of squeeze it on there. It wasn't perfect. And the idea is we're going to pop these off right now and take a very, very small amount of smooth on resin, the smooth cast, pour it in there, just kind of rock it back and forth, because that takes like just like 5 minutes to dry. And just what I want to get is a shell. Like I don't need the whole arm as a 3-dimensional thing, just like a shell of it that I could then cut up and like position it. And we'll see how that goes. Once again, it pulls, towards the base of this curve, and at the base is where it hardens first. So it's epoxy material. So the mass, if there's more of it, it actually hardens from the mass. So me actually thinning it more and more, and twisting it to thin the layer within these rubber molds, it makes it dry slower. So we're gonna try and peel these out without cracking them, just to see what came out. Let's see how we get this. Okay, these actually release very well. Even, I mean, I use release agent anyway, but they have like I don't know, kind of like a waxy kind of outside that they're using this material. Okay, let's see if I can get a little bit of the hand. So what do we have? What do we have to work with? A very thin shell, but that's not bad. It's not bad. So I could use this really thin shell as the outer layer. And now I could probably put some epoxy clay inside. Let that dry for 24 hours. And so we have a general arm. No, not the shoulder. I lost the shoulder. But we have one arm. And a closed fist of some detail. Not the best detail, but it's there. So, yeah, that works. Very thin. If I squeeze it, it'll just crack. It's super thin. So we're definitely going to put something in there, some kind of epoxy in there. Alright, here we are. So I did a really quick, big, bulbous shoulder sculpting. But primarily, I filled the inside of these hollowed out arms and the base side of it, to really hold the arm onto the backing. And yeah, there we go. So, a little bit of sculpting, a little bit of prefabricated material. I've also taken the hands and filled them with a thin layer of the epoxy clay, so that way when they harden, it'll be like a nice shell on the inside, nice thin shell. I'm not gonna attach the hands yet until I figure out how I want to sculpt the chest. But essentially, I separated the bicep from the forearm and the hand at the wrist, so I could then just position it kind of like that. So he'll be holding on to the straps of his backpack. And the only real mechanic I have to figure out is the tail. Should I have another piece flip out to give the tail much more longer length? I don't know yet. We'll figure that out. So yeah, I'm just going to slowly continue to build up with sculpting and other material. I've been practicing with the green stuff, as in the Army Painter green stuff, which is used for miniatures, such as this little D&D miniature. So I'm using the green stuff on top of a little bit of the freeform sculpt, which is in itself still on top of some exposed foam. But yeah, we got the beady eyes, we got the teeth for the upper jaw. I just need to add a bit of a rim around this bottom plate to then work on the bottom teeth and then fill in the gaps on the side. And I think once the face is done, like once the jaw and the face is done, all the interior, with the exception of his back, but like his sides, his rib cage, all of that is pretty much finished. And let's turn this back around. I am slowly working on the tail. So what we have this weird thing here. So we have this little hook right here with a kind of a circular divot. I had to reposition the Lego blocks on top. So when it's in, I guess, beast mode, these top Legos link perfectly, but the bottom ones don't, which is kind of okay because then I could use that gap in the shell. Let me see if I can show you now. I basically use the gap in the shell right about there. There we go. So the top is holding nice and snug, and the gap in the shell, and the gap in the whole body shell allows me to do this. So now I can sculpt the tail coming right off the back. It's not going to droop down. I've also added a little hinge right here. You could bend up and down, and I'm going to use that to extend the tail just a pinch further, give it a bit more. Once this little green arc on top of these white pieces of plastic dries, I'll trim it more and more. That way it could go inside and click and stay flush with the chest. So yeah, it's just sculpting on the face, small mechanical detail for the tail, and then once again sculpting all over the tail. So little adjustments had to be made because of the weirdness of how the Lego blocks lined up, but we're making it work piece by piece. Nothing's ever perfect, people, especially when you're working by hand. So without further ado, let's show off our final product of Starve. Ta-da! Look at that goofy guy. Look at that goober. Ugh, I love it. So this is the final product of Starve. Once again, a character from my kind of developing universe known as the Pack. Now, he does stand on his own, actually, perfectly. Despite all the weight added to his body, all the fine details sculpted onto him. He stands on his own, but since we're going to do a turnaround, he does have a little bit of a flat, clear base behind him. Let me zoom in just a pinch before we do the full turn. So here he is standing up. He has his blue jeans. He has these big like work boots with like safety guard shin pads. He got these cut off like bicycle gloves. He has a gold chain, which is actually added to hide some of the sculpting detail. And to fill up the bulk of his body, he also has this sculpted like back brace. Essentially, he is, you know, someone that's carrying packages everywhere he goes. In his case, he's carrying food like the Uber Eat guys and all those other, you know, call us and we'll deliver for you kind of guys. So he's built to carry this. And he's holding on to those green straps because on his back, he does have a big white carrying case. Now, because the carrying case is built on hinges, you do have a little bit of exposed paint job for his transformation, which is okay, but it all comes out pretty clean for what it is. You might have a little bit of scraping here, once again because the hinges rub against each other, but it is a lime green white bag, which is kind of the reverse of what you see these guys usually carrying, which is a green and like dark black bag. And yeah, that's how he looks like this, and I'm super happy with that. So I'm just gonna show you how he stands on his own without the backpack to prove that it does work. It does actually work. So look at that. The legs with the legs from this figurine are really sturdy, and even with the extra weight on his back, he stands up beautifully. So let's get nice and close and show some details before the transformation. Once again, he has a really goofy face. That's I have no idea what, if that even is a wrestler that they made a knockoff figurine head off of. Big muscular arms. He has the belt strap, the backpack strap that he's clinging onto for dear life. Big barrel-chested individual. So I used a mixture of enamel paints and water-based paint to give him all the fine colors, different details, different shades of green. This more lime green, this more like olive green color. This piece in the back is actually hiding the connecting point between this entire backpack, which is going to be flipped inside out for our transformation. The head is on a ball joint and it is glued in place. Technically it moves around, but last time I went to move it, it snapped off. I had to re-glue him twice. So for now, let's just say all his articulation is in the legs. He has all the original articulation of the original figurine. I tried to get as much fine detail as possible. I painted that belt buckle. I used a mixture of, as usual, dry brush and wet brush. So wet brush, flat colors, wet brush to get into all the fine details, kind of dirty it up a little bit. And then dry brush for the highlights, which came out very nice on the jeans. These jeans originally were like black and army camo kind of mix, like black with greens. The boots were just solid black, but I gave them bits of gray here and there. And I used enamel paint silver, which makes this metal plate pop out beautifully. And now that we got the turnaround of this in his human form, it is time to turn Starve into his monstrous form. So we start with getting rid of the head. First things first, this entire chest plate is on a hinge. It slides forward. And you have this little spiked kind of tail sticking out. And then you pull this nub down. And that is the tail. The entire head. The entire head folds partially into the chest. He's a big-headed dude. But it folds enough. The fun part. We're going to take this entire backpack and essentially turn it inside out. First, we're going to flip the top, which is on a hinge. We're going to pop out the back. I'm not going to show you that right now. I'm going to show you that as a reveal. First, we're going to pop open the back and turn the whole thing backwards. You notice that the tail right there has like a divot. So you have two connecting points, the original which was on the outside and one that's on the inside. That's going to slide into that divot on both sides and connect. Bring the back down. On the side, you have these big meaty kind of shoulder blades, and you have these little stubby kind of T.R.I.X arms. We're going to pull those down. These are on simple just simple like elbow joints. And then the reveal. Oh, look at that. The legs stay the same way, but to make it creepy, we're going to turn the feet around and give them these kind of like T.R.I.X looking feet. And then once I adjust him, stand by. He stands. Oh boy, does he stand. Let me lower the camera a pinch. Get a nice straight view of that. That is Starve, the real character. Now, he's standing just fine. Let's see if I could do a turn around and keep him standing. So he has this big, square, blocky head. He has these kind of rib cage, muscular patterns that go down on one side and extend all the way around. It's these bony, pointy protrusions for little arms, little T.R.I.X arms. He has the beginning of like a spine bump, which then starts to turn into a spike, which then continues into these three spikes, 1, 2, 3 down the back, which continue down the tail. Isn't that a thing of beauty? He has 4 eyes, one's on the sides, 2 in the front. You can see in all directions. And His jaw drops open. Look at that. Oh, I am extremely proud of just that whole simple mechanism. Let's get close in for details. Let's get some fine details. Whoop. So much like my other figurines in this line, his color tones range from like purples to pinks and violets. That's usually the rainbow colors I use for this. You see where like the fleshy light purple, which is kind of flooded out in the lights, sorry about that, but the fleshy light purple then becomes more of an organic-y pink and then becomes these bony yellow into white little T.R.I.X arms, pointed arms. That same coloring is for the teeth, so you get the idea that the teeth and the fingers, or these little, well, not even fingers, these little singular claws are all the same kind of bone material. He has a pink tongue that sits in there. It's that red and pink tongue and a simple up and down sliding joint. It just comes right out. Here's the back again. Exposed area. Can't get around it. Some transformations aren't always as clean as others. So flat back piece here. Trying to get into focus a bit better. There we go. That becomes like a bump that begins to expand into spikes, which come down the base all the way to the tail. Once again, most articulation is in the feet and the legs, and I figured just the idea of like this kind of condensed T.R.I.X looking monster. I decided to give the eyes little white spots, like faux reflective pieces. Wet brush black into all the materials, all the little fine detail in the material, all the little crevices, and then a dry brush of a light purple, which once again might be coming out a bit too bright on this camera. But yeah, I think my favorite part is the teeth. This was enamel paint for the teeth. I have this beautiful color of like a mustard kind of I think it's called like flat yellow, so it comes off more mustard as opposed to like a shiny, like a shiny flower kind of yellow. Then I just added some white to dull it out, so he has more of like a nasty some nasty teeth there. Little wiggles in the arms, wiggle in the arm. And like I said before, he stands perfectly. As I've mentioned in previous videos, this was also a long time coming. There's a number of figurines I'm finishing and pumping out that have been on the art table for the longest time, and now he is done. I have other designs in the pack series that I have yet to sculpt, but I might take a break from this and do some other customized figurines. Maybe Transformers in the more traditional sense, but until then, you'll see. And that's that. So I will be uploading still images of this guy on my DeviantArt page. I will be rambling about him a bit more on my Twitter account. And if you want to see still images of the work in progress over the course of like the past few months, turn over to my Instagram. All the links down below. And I think that concludes this chapter of this character. So once again, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I am Dante. Like, favorite, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the future. Later. Hello again. If you like this video, please be sure to follow me on all these social media websites with the links in the description down below. Thanks again.